This is Ash Ketchum, and you're listening to Silph Radio.
This is Silph Radio, a Pokemon podcast, episode 50. That's right, we've made it to 50 episodes of Silph Radio. Thank you to everybody listening, all the fans, the listeners, everyone that's liked our Facebook and given us the iTunes ratings and helped us in this long 4-year road? 2013, I think. Yeah, thank you so much. I couldn't be happier. Yes, that was Veronica Taylor, Ash Ketchum, him, her, themself. I'm living a dream right now, a childhood dream realized and come true. I'm hosting a Pokemon show that people actually listen to, and Ash Ketchum just introduced it. So thank you so much. Thank you, Brianna, who actually met Veronica Taylor. And thank you to all the co-hosts and guest hosts that have made this show so entertaining. If I did it myself, people would have stopped listening a long time ago. Thank you, Craig, Phil, Jeremy, Antoine, Brianna, Justin, Steve, Andrew, and even John. Thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to another 50 episodes. Here with me to discuss Pokemon, the first movie, Mewtwo Strikes Back, because what the fuck else are we going to talk about for our 50th episode special, is none of the people I just listened. We have a 20-time published author, Marquis Woolford, for the first time on Silph Radio.
Thank you. It is definitely an honor to be here for the 50th episode to discuss something that I'm very passionate about. And once again, shout out to having Ash Ketchum, him, her, themselves, the voice. I just that alone lets me know that I'm a part of something amazing. And to talk about Pokemon, especially the first movie, it's one of the most important things that I experienced. It was critical for my life at the time, considering how much Pokemon meant to me when it first came out, this series. But we'll get more into that later. I just want to say again that, Nathan, thank you for allowing me to talk about something that you know how much I love, and let's get into it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to have you here. Marquis, for the listeners, you can hear more of him if you like this on Fair Enough Podcast. He's all over that, our other series. This is a Secret Room multimedia production, no affiliation with Game Freak, Nintendo, the Pokemon Company, or any other Pokemon-affiliated property. This is a fan production, and this is not for children. We cannot stress that enough. If you're a child and you're listening, that's on you. So, Pokemon, the first movie. Why waste time? Let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
In Japanese, it was Pocket Monsters, the movie, Mewtwo's Counterattack, which, of course, was renamed here in America and most of the places in the world, I believe, Pokemon, the first movie. But then when you watch it, the title screen says Mewtwo Strikes Back. It was released in Japan on July 18th, 1998, and in America, November 10th, 1999, along with the short Pikachu's Vacation, which we already covered in, I don't know, episode 20-something. I was a freshman in high school.
All right, 99, that's the year I graduated from high school, so that was November 99 was my first year in college. And
okay, cool. It's my first year in high school, your first year in college.
Well, what's crazy is, for me, and shout out to my man Rashard. Rashard, who's still a good friend of mine, was one of my first friends in college. And our first year in college at the University of Buffalo in 99 was literally Pokemon. And this was back when Pokemon wasn't, it was popular, but there was a lot of backlash from like the black church. So in general, Pokemon had this weird cultural phenomenon back in '99. But for me and Rashard, I believe I spoke about this in another podcast on Fair Enough. We were actual Pokemon. We would have actual Pokemon battles. I would gleek, and he would shoot bottle tops at me, and we would do this in front of the cafeteria in Clement Hall, and all these girls would walk past us, and we would just be playing a Poke battle. Like, we were that committed to, like, watching the show. We would sit there in our dorm room. Girls would come over, like, what are you watching? We were like, it's Pokemon. Like,
dude, when I was in, like, 8th grade, me and Justin, another Silph Radio host, would walk out into the woods and have these epic Pokemon adventures.
Yeah,
There's no shame in it.
But you were 19. Like, we literally...
No, I wasn't 19. I was in, like, 8th grade.
Girls would walk past us. We would be like... We had, like, full-on beards and mustache. They were like losers. And, it's a testament to how... That was probably the last time, Nathan, that I was innocent, because, I stopped watching Pokemon and being invested when I started noticing girls. And it's kind of sad because Pokemon was the last vestige of my childhood and my innocence. Man. Because Ash, what he created was this crazy commitment to these characters, to these creatures that made you feel something. I can't wait to talk about the movie because I remember seeing it in theaters, and I took my daughter, who was 4 at the time, and I cried. We both did, watching the movie.
Did anybody come back to life? Spoiler alert. Anyway.
Well, I tell you, it wasn't even just, I want to talk about the score, and I want to talk about, as we talk about the movie, I want to talk about the build-up and everything that led to making me feel something. And rewatching it, it's funny because it's a little dated.
That's super interesting that it was when you got into girls that you got out of Pokemon. For me, it wasn't exactly getting into girls that made me fall out of Pokemon. I just kind of fell out of Pokemon. And what got me back into Pokemon, though, was after going through this horrible breakup that happened right after high school. I turned to my big brick gray Game Boy and my Pokemon Red version, popped it in. I specifically remember, like, the feeling of, like, revisiting that game for the first time as an older teen. But
did I ever tell you why I walked away from Pokemon and why I never got into the games? You
just did.
No, more specifically, it wasn't just the girls. There was a pivotal turning point. It was when Ash lost to Gary.
In the league?
In the league.
Oh.
And I remember it felt like when the Bills lost those 4 Super Bowls. Like, me and my friend Rashard, I wish we could call him up right now. We were so emotionally invested in watching Pokemon. Like, we would push aside college parties to watch the new episodes. We would sing the song. And when we watched the episodes, can't wait the next week. So when he lost, I was done. I was pissed off. I was not happy.
Wow, okay.
That made me turn away from Pokemon because I remember watching it like as if I was watching a Super Bowl or watching. So at the end when he lost, and then we was so mad, he was sledding down the hill with Gary and, like frolicking. And it was like, maybe next season. And at the time, I was like, nah, man. I invested a whole year. I had Poke battles. When we would have our Poke battles, there was this game called... I think it was Sega Genesis. No, that's ridiculous. It was PlayStation, maybe Nintendo 64. It was called Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver. And in the game, this vampire would go into the spectral world.
I remember the game.
He would wave his hand.
He had that scarf over his face.
It was a phenomenal game. It was a series of them, Kain. So he would go into the spectral world that existed alongside our reality, a spiritual world. So in order for me and Rashard to comfortably have our Poke battles, we would first...
You had to enter the spiritual
We would go into the spectral realm. So we would wave our hand. And we would do this often. So we would be around people. And I'm like, yo, Rashard, I got to talk to you for a second. Go to the spectral world with me. And we would shake our hands. And I'm like, yo, these people are assholes. And he'd be like, they are. And they're like, we can hear y'all. They're like, they can't hear us. And we would do it. And it would be so obnoxious. And that's what I loved about that time. When we would go into the spectral realm, we would have Poke battles. And we would bump into people. And I would gleek at him, and he would shoot bottle tops at me and roll around on the floor.
Gleek at him?
Yeah, when you spit the spit.
Spit
from out of your...
Don't do that in the secret room.
Yeah, well, you got to show Google gleeking, and not the fan of the show Glee, although I am a Glee.
Keep that in the spectral realm.
Well, listen, I probably should have went to the spectral realm first. The point is, we would have these very intense... We would sweat sometimes. These Poke battles would be a testament to our love for Pokemon because we were so... you and I were speaking earlier about the idea of going to the world of Pokemon, and we went. We were there.
I bought golf balls, which I painted into different types of Pokeballs, Great Balls, Ultra Balls, Pokeballs, and carried them around. This is in 8th grade. Carried them around with me. I specifically remember them all spilling out in shop class one day. And I wore my link cable around my neck like a fucking necklace for like Game Boy trading.
Hey.
Yeah, it's
a phenomenon that, some almost 20 years later we're talking about it in its various forms. And let's talk about the movie. I got a lot of notes that I took because the movie
there's a lot there. Yeah,
go back and watch Pokemon first movie, Mewtwo Strikes Back, because especially now, Nathan, with everything happening with the kneeling and Kaepernick and all this idea of patriotism and race, because the movie starts with this whole idea of slavery. And Mewtwo continuously speaks about how he's a slave and how he was created to be a slave. And I'm watching it again recently like, whoa. And that's the whole premise of the movie, that he doesn't want to be a slave.
It is. And if you dig a little deeper, it gets even more intense, because in Japan, they actually released, alongside the movie, a radio drama. So it's all in Japanese, so listening to it's not going to do you much good if you don't know Japanese.
iPhone, there's the app, Google Translate.
There you go. You can find translations online too.
Sure,
but
of course.
It details the origins and creations of Mewtwo, and then they also adapted that storyline into a 10-minute prequel or prologue to the movie called The Origins of Mewtwo.
Can we get into it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about first this sad little girl, Amber.
Yes.
When you watch The Origins of Mewtwo, the whole movie starts with this young girl who, she says something where she says, the stars are the lights that twinkle all night just so we won't feel alone in the dark.
Basically, it's Mr. Fuji, the scientist that you see creating Mewtwo in the movie. His daughter was Amber.
Right.
And she died. She was like 4 years old.
Right. But do you hear what she says? Because when I watched that recently, she said the stars are the lights when she's explaining to a young Mewtwo.
Yeah.
Like, what are the stars?
What happens is he's trying to make a clone of his daughter.
So the whole premise is that he's creating this virtual world where he's incubating these clones, and it's the psychology of these entities that have an actual spirit, a soul.
Yeah.
So
the whole reason he's involved is because he wants to make a clone of his daughter who died, and then Giovanni, the leader of Team Rocket, of course, is funding it.
No, I didn't realize that he was the leader of Team Rocket, but that made sense.
Yeah, so he's funding it on the grounds that, sure, I'll fund your cloning research if you make me a clone of Mew.
He just wants a badass.
So he starts making this Mewtwo clone, and Mewtwo and Amber, too, are communicating telepathically while their bodies are still asleep in their Vegeta tubes, as I like to call them. You know, the tank like Luke Skywalker's in an Empire Strikes Back.
Your traditional science fiction, incubation tube, that juice that you can apparently, float in and breathe through and be all right. And it doesn't make you all wrinkly. It's good. Alien,
Alien water, yeah. Blue milk.
Yeah, blue milk. You must have thought the same.
You ever take a blue milk bath?
Hey, listen, Luke.
It's good. It's really good for your pores.
He was a nerve herder on Tatooine drinking blue milk.
So, what does she say? What does she say?
It's so poetic, and it hits you hard, especially if you watch the movie with the Origin of Mewtwo first, because immediately as you're watching this movie, this young girl says that the stars are the lights that twinkle all night just so we won't feel alone in the dark. And it's so poetic that it hits you hard. And I remember now why this movie initially starts to pull at the heartstrings with the score and with these characters that are more sympathetic. But if you go back to the show, at least, there were times like when Ash had to protect Charmander, his flame. He couldn't go out or he would die.
Yeah, the snow episode. I remember that.
It wasn't rain? Was it snow? We had to go back.
The rain, they found Charmander in the rain,
Okay.
And his fire was going to go out.
And he had the big leaf. And I mean, I remember watching that episode being like blown away at the level of, emotion that was even in the show, and you didn't get that out of the cartoon, normally. So that's one of the reasons why, even though I was older, I came back to Pokemon. This character Ash really cared about these characters, and so the movie expands that level of emotion even more with this sympathetic 4-year-old that apparently is in
Ash definitely cares. Yes, that's definitely a trait of Ash, is that he cares. He cares a little to a fault sometimes.
Hey, listen. We can have a lot more Ash Kesselrums in the world and a lot less Team Rockets. And so continuing with the poetry of that initial prologue, if you will, when the little girl fades away, when Amber fades away, Mewtwo, he says...
Her body's not strong enough because
Right.
she's a human, but because he's a really powerful Pokemon, there's also a Charmander 2, a Bulbasaur 2, and a Squirtle 2.
Yep.
They all die.
That was sad. They all floated away, and, this isn't like happy-go-lucky, gotta catch them all. This was like, you got a 4-year-old and little ghost Pokemon dying, and so when she died, again, carrying with the sense of emotion and sentiment, Mewtwo says, "These tears, what good are they?" When he cries in response to Amber dying. And that, as his character begins to arc, she gave him an introduction to the world. And his introduction was complete from birth to death. So when Amber dies, it begins his transformation into this wrecking force, because it's the last moment of vulnerability that he'll allow for. And it's ironic if you consider it's a foreshadowing of the end of the movie that he mentions tears. But it was one of those lines that was like, he was a cute little, character. But when he said these tears, what are they good for? For those of us who have lost people that, we cry for, there's that anger. And so when he said that, it was like, that's when he first became a badass. He was just like, these tears, what are they good for?
And it's also because he doesn't understand anything that's going on. And he's like, what's going on?
He's like,
she's
this
like,
is bullshit. These tears ain't gonna bring her back. Fuck these tears. And that's when it begins.
That was his initial trauma. And in the Japanese version, like in the English version, he wants to destroy all of humanity. And in the Japanese version, that's not there. He never talks about destroying all of humanity. He is sort of being a dick, but he never talks about destroying humanity. He's just pissed at humanity, and he's super powerful and not going to take it anymore, and he wants to test his strength test his clone's strength, so he gets all the strongest.
But couldn't this
trainers
serve as the initial kind of like, if you watch Guardians of the Galaxy 2, when you see Groot become a, impetuous teen, it's like that sense of like, I want to destroy the world. Initially, it's kind of like, just extending the mythos. This was a spark of something that even as you watch the movie, he walks away from. But you can see that initial sense of, he created me. Because again, to go back to like, I'm a slave. Is that in the manga? Do they kind of talk about how he was created initially to serve?
They did actually make a manga. The guy who did The Electric Tale of Pikachu, Toshihiro Ono, which we've talked about several times on this show, he did a fucking manga based on Mewtwo Strikes Back. And I had to dig deep to find it online. But it is so cool because his art style is just so much cooler. I'll highlight some of the differences as we go through the plot of the movie. As the movie begins, we see Dr. Fuji exploring South America, right? Or that's in the prologue. He's exploring South America looking for Mew.
Right.
In the manga, he actually befriends Mew and then sort of betrays Mew. He's in the lab, though, and I guess if you watch the origin of Mewtwo, it's when Amber dies is that what sparks him to start waking up, too, right?
Right, yeah.
And that's when Mewtwo wakes up and just sort of starts destroying the lab all around him. And Dr. Fuji's like, we dreamed of creating the world's strongest Pokemon, and we succeeded. And then he dies.
Yeah, it was very classic, high drama anime Japanese, entertainment. But one thing that really struck me is at one point Mewtwo, somewhere between when Amber dies and he's, transforming from a smaller Mew to the Mewtwo form and his final transformation.
He was like Mewtwo, but younger, more.
Right, yeah.
More,
But he certainly would, for all intents and purposes, we had to say he evolves in that sequence from when Amber dies to when he has his confrontation with the laboratory. I just realized that. But somewhere along the lines, he says, "Who am I?" And what was really profound about that statement, I recently was watching Amazing Spider-Man 2. And at the end of the movie, there was a line that the teacher says that struck me to the core, especially as a writer, 20-time published author to be exact. The teacher says that there are only 9 stories in all of literature. And then she says, no, in actuality, there's only one story in all of literature. And that is, who am I? So profound.
I like it.
And it resonates when that is the crux of this journey that Mewtwo embarks upon, because he effectively has the power of a god. And he was created in the same way that Lucifer was to serve, and he didn't like it.
That's what happens next is Giovanni sort of flies by in his Blackbird or whatever. And He lands, approaches Mewtwo like
Hey,
amidst all this flame
what's
and
going
rubble.
on here? He's like, you don't be fugazi. What are you doing? He's like this slimy.
My lab.
What's up? What's wrong with you? Huh? Jesus, could you get a creepier? You got these little kids running around with like half shirts and shit. Jesse's seen the business end of I don't know. What's going. I've been in preparation for my coloring book. I've been looking at a lot of weird stuff on the internet. You gotta forgive me. But yes.
Basically, he's like, hey, Mewtwo, why don't you come be partners with me? And Mewtwo refuses, but he's like, look, I can help you focus your powers. Mm-hmm. Mewtwo's like, show me. So he makes this metal armor, which back in the day, images of this leaked onto the internet before we knew anything about the movie, and that was Mew 3. As far as we knew, when images of Mewtwo in the armor popped up, we were like, proof that Mew 3 exists. He's in the anime in Japan. So soon we find out it's just Mewtwo with Giovanni's cybernetic armor.
Can I say how badass he was? And before we go any further, one thing I think that's really notable, right as Mewtwo is emerging from the back to tank, shout out to Star Wars, he looks at his hand and there's this revulsion because the humans are high-fiving and shit. And so he looks at their hands, and then he looks at his hand, and there's a moment where the camera pans, it's a close-up, and he just really looks at his hand, and he's just like, ew. And then he's got these 3 bulbous fingers. And for me, being the student of literature and the nerd that I am, it drew me back to John Milton's Paradise Lost. Now, as an English major, Paradise Lost is one of the greatest works of literature that I ever read because, for those who don't know, it's the retelling, the extrapolation of Genesis, the story from the Bible of Adam and Eve. And the irony of Paradise Lost is that John Milton actually introduced the character of Satan to existence because in the Old Testament, he's the serpent.
It's just the serpent, yeah.
So people take for granted that Satan is a character that is potent.
Yeah, nobody said that serpent was Satan in the Bible. That's just
he gave it a name.
Like, yeah.
He created a narrative, and and as a writer, that really speaks to me that he added to the lexicon of biblical lore. So, anyways, in Paradise Lost, there's a moment where Eve, when she's first created, she looks at her reflection, and she is immediately drawn to that, and it speaks to the sense of narcissism and possible lesbianism and so many things that you can look at. But upon then looking at Adam, she didn't like what she saw. She saw a hierarchy and herself as a cast off. And so there was something that was so profound about Mewtwo's recognition of his form and him trying to reconcile what he was in relation to man. And it just reminded me of something that was as profound as the creation. And it became biblical. It was a mixture of it was a chiasma, if you will, a crossing pattern in poetic terms of Eve and Lucifer and Jesus and Thor and Gilgamesh. It's this epic because who's the hero in Pokemon Mewtwo Strikes Back? Is it Ash or is it Mewtwo?
Well, I guess we'll talk about that at the end without spoiling the ending, as if people haven't already seen the movie. So Giovanni puts the armor on Mewtwo, but it doesn't actually make him stronger. It's actually there suppressing his powers. Mewtwo, you see this montage of Mewtwo just mowing through.
He was like
people.
Lex Luthor. That was one thing, Giovanni. He was definitely like a Lucifer,
Sure.
Lex Luthor character.
Sure.
He was like, we talk about it and...
Wow, that's a great comparison. Thank you. I used Magneto as a comparison in a previous episode, but Lex Luthor's a better comparison for the way I view Giovanni.
It just definitely, he came off as this like, we joked about it earlier. Like you said, the montage, he just empowered Mew, and we knew, like, oh man, don't get too comfortable, Mewtwo. I remember as I was watching it again, I don't remember the first time when I watched how I felt. It was probably the same. I remember at some point I was like, oh hell no, Mewtwo, they trying to enslave you. And I remember thinking that, and then right as I said that in my mind, he said, like, you trying to enslave me. I was like, okay, thank you.
Giovanni says he was created to serve humans, and he's just like, fuck that shit. You said we were going to be partners, and burns the place to the ground. Like, he realizes the armor's dampening his powers. Like, what's the word? Restricting? I don't know. I can't think of the word.
Well,
but
it was focusing the abilities, and it's such... The thing is, I think anybody recognizes on some level that there's a weight to this story of this character. And the gravitas of how his lines are delivered, the power of his voice. We're going from a show and a 8-bit video game, and the show is all Pika Pika. So you go from Pika Pika, I'm I'm gonna save you. Shouts out to Ash Ketchum, Veronica Taylor. But when you hear Mewtwo speak, I'm here to find out why I'm here. Like, he's definitely
Hugo Weaving.
What'd you say?
Is that Hugo Weaving?
Yes. He's intense. The whole beginning is intense, and it lets you know, like with any good animated movie, go back to Transformers or G.I. Joes, it's in that same vein that this is for real. We're seeing deaths.
I love the way that's all handled in the manga, too. That whole scene with Mewtwo confronting him, he's like, look, I know this is suppressing my power, so you guys can just use me. Take it off. And he's like, no, I'm not going to take it off. So Mewtwo's like, okay, fine. I just want to know, is what I'm doing right? And Giovanni's like, what? Destruction and fighting and plundering? Everyone does it. In history, there is no right or wrong, just winners and losers. So Mewtwo goes back to his quarters or whatever, and Giovanni calls Dr. Fuji, and he's like, I want you to make me more armor that suppresses his thoughts because he's thinking too much. Which I love that, addition to the story. It adds a whole nother layer of how fucked up that is. And at that point, Dr. Fuji is like, I can't do this anymore. And he goes and takes the armor off Mewtwo and is like, burn the lab to the ground. And Mewtwo's like, I can't. You created me. And he's like, do it. They're going to fucking make more of you. They're going to suppress your thoughts. Burn the fucking lab to the ground so they can't get the fuck out of here. So he burns the lab to the ground by request of Dr. Fuji and kills Dr. Fuji and the whole thing. Which I just thought was Toshihiro Ono adds such another level, I think, to what is basically a children's story in the anime, you know, and I think it's dope.
Well, and that's the beauty of anime is that, you go back to shows like Full Metal Alchemist and you look at the intensity, the premise of all these shows. I mean, one thing that I don't know if today's audiences understand about manga and anime, in Japanese culture, they're not allowed to show certain sexual and violent depictions in live media. They can only do it in anime form. And so as a culture, they learn to sublet and to produce things that are very high drama, violent, sexual, and powerful, and on levels that if you don't understand now why these genres are so heartfelt and so amazing, maybe you never will. But for those of us who do, just to say that the point of this whole discussion is why Pokemon, in particular Mewtwo Strikes Back, Pokemon the first movie, is such a critical, important cultural contribution. We talked about before how at the time when Pokemon first debuted, there was a lot of backlash. From my experience, the Black church especially was very vehement about Pokemon being the devil. And that went hand in hand with Pokemon. I don't know, younger people don't know that you couldn't say Pokemon in Black culture and not, that was the pre-Illuminati. Pokemon was the Illuminati in, 90s culture. If you were talking about Pokemon, that was probably another reason why I kind of, shied away from it, because it was not okay. It was up there with homosexuality and crack addiction. You better not play with no Pokemon. That's the devil. And he's like, it's not the devil. There was a Japanese kid who liked animals and plants. He mushed them together and they're pocket monsters.
Yeah.
That's it. Well, it's idolatry. Touche. I mean,
so is everything fucking else you
pick
do.
Your battle. So is fucking everything else I'm playing with. I love my Ninja Turtles as much as my Pokemon, and as much as going to Disneyland and my Fruity Pebbles. It's little characters everywhere. What the fuck you want me to do? Christianity is idolatry, ain't it? I got a dude on a fucking cross swinging on my neck. What am I supposed to be doing out here? I worship to this
Silph
little
Radio, the Pokemon podcast.
Got this little dude over here. I like this little dude. They got catchy songs and cool characters with dope ass powers that interact with one another. You got to have a balance of fire and water and ice. And come on, man.
Speaking of,
it's scientific.
We get to see that as we cut from the title card to Ash, Misty, and Brock relaxing,
right,
cooking,
and this dude come out of nowhere
and challenges him to a battle.
Jabroni.
Right.
At this point, if you like me were watching this series and you had enjoyed the first season, albeit Ash losing, but then the movie comes out, you already know what Ash is about. It's implied. So this dude, I want to battle you. Ash is like, you're too tired to battle. He's like, nah, I was too tired to do work. I'm always down to battle. It ain't work.
That's another thing you can't. He's always down to battle.
He said it ain't work. Come on, man. My man said it ain't work. He was like, let's get out here. Team Rocket over there hating as used.
Yeah, and we get our first glimpse of Donphan. This is another, the elephant Pokemon was second gen, not out yet, which was cool.
Yeah. Oh, it was a lot of Pokemon that, I remember that was part of the excitement of watching it the first time. So watching the show, there was always those Pokemon that were silhouetted or the Pokemon that you would hear about. And, you know, again, for today's listeners, you got to understand that this was the earliest days of the internet. So there wasn't something that you could just Google and find out just as easily as you can today. So you only had to go by word of mouth. And, you know, for me, I didn't own a reliable computer. It wasn't something that I had access to. And a lot of people didn't, especially where I came from. So information was word of mouth. That was it.
Even on the internet it was. I'd stay after school at the school to use their computers and look Pokemon stuff up. That was one of the things I was most excited about for this movie was seeing Donphan on the screen because I knew it was going to happen.
It was an orgy of seeing, like, amazing Pokemon and some of my favorites, Blastoise. You could dedicate a whole series to Blastoise and I'd be okay with that. Like, seriously.
Oddly, during this battle, they play this really awful pop song cover
Are we talking about the music now?
Of the theme song.
Can we? It got really wacky throughout. I don't know if I noticed, like, the R&B score of the Pokemon movie. You go back to what made Pokemon. It was this Japanese cartoon with a really soulful intro. It was probably one of the most soulful songs that I've ever heard in my life.
A different theme song in Japan, of course, but the theme song.
Right, so introduced it to American culture, and then with the movie,
the actual English theme song of Pokemon is one of the best TV theme songs. It's great, and it's so much more epic than the version they use in the movie, which should have the more epic version.
Well, it just seemed weird, and at the same time, it seemed like it was pandering. It's like,
it was
if I watched Pokemon because it was a dope story. Like, I guess I thought Brock was Mexican. I don't know if he seems ethnic, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm, as a black man, the exception, but I don't have to see black people in stuff to like it, because I understand it as, like, in America, for example, a black man only makes up roughly 5% of the population. So if you took, like, a random smattering of people, like, I don't know, 3, it's a good chance they would all be white. But if they were traveling the world battling pocket monsters, I'm into it. And because there's no black person there, or they're not listening to R&B music, I'm still in. So I don't understand. I guess maybe the broader
I think
margins of black people
at that point what pop music was pandering to.
But is that what
it's all pop music?
Is that going to bring you to Pokemon? Oh, I heard they got Roberta Flack singing on the track.
Yeah, if you look at the soundtrack though, it's all Christina Aguilera, 98 Degrees, In Sync. It's
weird. It's kind of creepy.
Fucking horrible.
Gross.
Like,
it's gross.
And growing up, I hated that. I was happy to be seeing Pokemon on the big screen, but I was also like, what are you guys doing with my franchise? Because I was in it before the anime came out. I loved the game, and I was reading about it on the internet, and I was like, I want to see you guys handle this better, not make stupid jokes and
black it
puns
up.
and
I'm embarrassed
horrible
to be black
pop music.
That I'm some entity that has to be pandered to. Imagine being a black nerd and then they do something that's blatantly, because they're like, listen, you niggas won't appreciate it unless we get somebody singing on the track. And I'm
loving it.
I'm like, yeah, we would. It's not that complex. I say, no, you won't. And then you go to church and they're like, it's the devil. You're like, God damn it. And so then you're caught in the middle as a black nerd, because it don't have to be race related at all. And when things get racy, you go back to Transformers and G.I. Joe, and they have characters like the, obligatory, I'm a rapping robot. Why? And then you turn into, so you came all the way from 5 million years away to turn into a boo box, and you rap when you talk. Or the go-to Transformer.
I was about to say Transformers is the biggest offender.
Remember G.I. Joe? And then in the movie, G.I. Joe, the movie, they gave Roadblock, one of the, B storylines, and he's rapping to Cobra Commander through the whole movie. God. And he's like, your eyes can't see, but you can walk with me. All right, okay.
My God.
And that was literally, if you go back,
oh my God,
it's 28 minutes of the movie is, Cobra, you might be a snake, but we gonna be on the same fate. Don't even rhyme. It's a slant rhyme. What is you doing? It was, as you're watching as a black person, I guess you realize, to go back to Pokemon, that there's this underlying level of insult.
Yeah.
Because it's unnecessary. I enjoyed it without, but the song, I don't know, because initially the anime, it brought me in because it was,
That's it's great.
You beat me. And, well, don't get me to sing it. But so the score was definitely something that made you raise an eyebrow like, that seems out of place. But beyond that, and so we got, Ash thoroughly trouncing the dude. Didn't he have chest hair? Didn't he have like...
He was like a pirate. It was weird.
He was like 42. Like, he was sloppy.
I want to battle this 10-year-old. So
come on.
Team Rocket, of course, is watching because they have nothing better to do than this creep on this 10-year-old.
Right? Yeah. And then doesn't that like blow your mind that after all this time their motivation is still to get Pikachu? Like, I don't know, you forget that that's their obsession, and it's like there are other Pikachus.
Yeah,
what's up with that?
They're failures, but I think that's part of the charm of their character.
It seemed almost like they should have upped the ante, which as we go further in the movie, it does show something different of them. It's a sympathetic art for them. But it pissed me off, at least more recently, like, oh, come on,
They don't need to be, sometimes they're just, especially in the movies, they're kind of just there to be there because they're characters, and they're like, well, we have to put them in even though they have nothing to do with the plot.
I don't like them as foils because I remember watching the anime, they were sometimes my favorite part.
Oh, me too.
But when you had that powerful to me moment when Ash is going to go save Pikachu from the cloning.
We'll get there. Let's get there. Let's move it along.
Was their moment right there for me.
So they're watching, and there's also somebody else watching Ash through like surveillance.
There's a lot of voyeurism going on,
right?
Again, he's a 10-year-old boy.
And whoever's in this like mysterious lighthouse watching Ash, it's like a lighthouse castle with windmills, and like he sends out a Dragonair with a little mailbag.
Yeah.
Do you remember the cards you would get for going to see it at the theater? You'd get either the Dragonair or Dragonite. I'm sorry, Dragonite with the mailbag, a Pikachu,
as you say it,
Mewtwo, or Electabuzz.
Is it vaguely kind of registers?
But the Dragonite shows up with invitations, basically inviting strong trainers to take part in this tournament on New Island.
A la Charlie the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah, you know what? I love the way that this is handled in the manga, too. In the manga, Ash is actually at the Pokemon League in the audience, just watching a Pokemon League tournament going on. Ash, Misty, and Brock are there, like, spectating. And after somebody wins the tournament and is crowned champion, this black vortex opens up in the sky. Mewtwo comes down riding on the back of the Dragonite, and Mewtwo's his face is wrapped in scarves, so you can't see that he's a Pokemon. It just looks like a man. And he challenges the champion to a battle, pulls out his Charizard, Blastoise, and Venusaur with the strange markings on them. Totally destroys him, and then as he's flying away, the Dragonite just empties a bag of invitations to the whole crowd, and it's like, whoever thinks they're boss enough, come challenge me on New Island. And
that's definitely a different story,
right? But it's the same story,
it's
but
so
just
much
a
more
different
badass.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, it's one of those things where the book is always better. So you and I are coming at it from two, couldn't be more opposing viewpoints to arrive at a common ground that it's a badass series and it was a great movie. So in the movie, after he gets the invitation, then it's like, all right, let's go do this.
Yeah, Mewtwo. There's trainers like storming this harbor to like take the boat to New Island, and Mewtwo with his psychic ability
it's a mixture of telepathic and telekinetic.
Telekinetic, yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty much the Phoenix. The combination
That's a great
of both
comparison.
Telepathic and telekinetic abilities. And it's just that, in addition to just, being a fucking badass.
And he stirs up a storm, like Storm. And
he's Darth Vader. He's a little bit of everything.
So he stirs up this storm. So basically only the trainers who are so dedicated as to fuck the boat and go through the storm with their Pokemon.
Really, not only a badass moment, but to see like the Gyarados and them just jumping on a different Celio. They were like, we're fucking going to the island, and they're like, no, don't go. And like the way they just took their Pokemon, the more powerful ones is like, there's brave the waters.
Other than Ash, Misty, and Brock, there's 4 other trainers that set out, and 3 of them make it to the island. The other one, a girl on her Firo, never seen again.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Can I also, when you're talking about Mewtwo, churning the ocean, can I just point out, I don't know if it's intentional, but it reminded me of Inspector Gadget when you would have Mask with just the right hand.
Oh, yeah.
He's kind of just waving his little freaky little, Ninja Turtle fingers. Or Macamee, and so many cultural references. Well, I should do a drinking game.
Also, the movie, the whole intro with Mewtwo and Giovanni and the laboratory wasn't originally going to be in the movie. It's because of the Porygon incident. You know about the Porygon incident, right? The seizures.
No. Oh, yes. Oh, right. I forgot all about
Pokemon,
that. That was also part of why it was, oh, man. That was why it was a problem, too, because it gave people seizures.
So,
I think like one kid had a seizure.
A lot of people had seizures.
Or just like
it's not inherent to Pokemon. It was the animation technique they did, and
I'd had to see it. It to me seemed more like an urban legend. I feel like if you have
it happened. No, it happened.
I know. Listen, I know it happened, but I feel like that's just like Darwinism. If you're a seizure for Pokemon, maybe you don't deserve to live. Is that bad?
They made a law. They made a law in Japan that you couldn't, if you were going to blink. It was blinking red and blue lights, and now there's a law that you have to blink them at a certain slow speed.
Which is great. Like, I guess it's a weeding out in a sense. But then I'm the same person that gets sick from our PlayStation VR. And I hate myself for it.
Well, that's the thing is there were children that were just watching TV that didn't know they were about to have seizures.
Right.
So,
and I feel bad.
Parents didn't know they had to tell their kids to be careful of having seizures.
I don't know. I guess
regardless,
it's the 19-year-old me that was defensive about Pokemon. That's not going to say
it's not going to give me a fucking seizure here in America.
I remember, I can't be sympathetic. Not that I don't believe it happened, although I certainly did. I thought it was overhyped. I just remember back in the day, you made me remember that it was turn off that Pokemon, you don't get a seizure.
Yeah.
Like it went hand in hand with Pokemon. Like
I know.
Pokemon became a buzzword for the devil and give you seizures, and it was a lot. And I remember thinking, like, have you watched an episode? I used to make my mother watch the episode with Charmander, or just watch Pikachu being Pika. Do that look like the devil? Come on.
It could have been any show. It was a specific animation technique, and because of that...
But it was one of the first, it was the vanguard of the Japanese invasion of television, if you think about it.
Kind of. There was one in the 80s, and then at that point, it got huge.
There was a Pokemon in the 80s?
No, anime, I mean, on TV.
Well, it was rare anime,
because
Dragon Ball.
To stay on track, because of the...
you know me.
The seizure incident... Mm-hmm. Pokemon was taken off the air for 3 months. And that screwed with the timing because there were certain episodes of the anime that basically detailed Mewtwo's origin story that were supposed to air before the movie came out. But that got Pokemon pushed back. So the movie came out before those anime episodes aired. So they added the scenes with Mewtwo's origin. So originally, you weren't supposed to see Mewtwo until Ash does. And that's why you only see his hand like Dr. Claw in that scene. Because originally they were trying to hide his identity a little bit.
The idea that it was an actual Pokemon instead of a Mon.
Sure.
I just got to say, your Poke knowledge is quite impressive. it's
Thank you.
extensive. No, it's it's remarkable. Continuing on with the movie, where are we? They get over to the
They get on the boat. They make the stupid Minnesota Vikings joke. What the fuck?
Hey, come on. What? That's in my notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, come on, man.
Minnesota doesn't exist in the Pokemon
apparently
universe.
It does. What do you want? Again, it's fan service. Come on. What are Vikings? They mainly live in Minnesota. Like, that was one of those, because then that brings you close to the fact that Ash might be right down the street. Like, he's aware. He could have said Buffalo. It was a cheap pop. But I fussed
that's
with
where,
it.
to me, that was like hearing a Minnesota Vikings joke in a Star Wars movie. I'm like, come on, Minnesota doesn't exist in this universe.
It definitely broke the fourth wall. And I think that for no other reason, it was to remind you that this was a movie. It was something to pull you out that this was not a regular episode. It's like when, spoiler alert, Optimus Prime died in the Transformers movie.
And it was a joke for the parents taking their kids, too,
Or the 20-year-old college dorks that was in there like, after a bone rip. So, it was definitely something that made you snap awake to say, oh, Ash is Trill out here. Like, it was because he kind of did a little shoulder shrug, like, I know what I'm doing. He was like, okay, Ash.
All right, Ash, you testing out your Hot 15, Ash? Come on.
I see you. You Trill today. Let's go. I'm invested because that just made him seem cockier because it was like,
oh, I'm on fire today.
It pulled you out of Pokemon that, this is a movie. Anything can happen. They're switching it up. They're debuting new Pokemon. They mentioned in the real world. They're giving us this dope. Let's lock in. I'm excited. So let's get into the battle.
Ash and friends get there. Jesse and James, who were of course the Vikings, disguised as the Vikings, get there.
What? You mean Meowth in the mask wasn't a mass? Come on, how did you miss
Mew
that?
was also awakened, and
Yeah, what was that? I feel like he was just chilling at the bottom of
they.
Whoa, hard do all Pokemon have gender or some? It seems a little arbitrary.
Only certain Pokemon, but
I wonder how that.
Some don't.
All right.
But Mew,
So anyways,
Mew sort of follows Team Rocket. Well, Jesse and James.
But why or where, like, this ancient creature just, all right, it was a confluence of circumstances.
I would guess maybe the psychic activity of Mewtwo starting the storm, because it's maybe such massive psychic activity that it woke Mew up. And it's like, Mew, Mew, Mew. And
all right, fair enough.
It follows Jesse and James as they, like, sneak in through the storm drains, kind of. And they
didn't see it at all.
No, they didn't. And Ash and friends are met by... Oh, we didn't mention that Nurse Joy is missing. The nurse from the town where the harbor was.
That Brock is a flamey pervert, which to me...
Oh, it's okay. We've mentioned it plenty of times before.
You have in 50th episode. But to me, I just want to note that is an homage to a trope in anime where you have these pervy characters. And if you're on the fence of if Pokemon is a legit anime, there's certain tropes. And to me, that character is that skeevy.
Well, he's more respectful than Master Roshi.
A woman would be lucky to have a Brock in her life. Like, if you're a Nurse Joy out in the world or Officer Jenny,
give Brock a chance.
Like, Brock would do you well until another Nurse Joy or Officer Jenny came along.
He'd be loyal, I think, once he had an opportunity
Brock
to.
A hoe. Listen.
So what led us down this path was Nurse Joy's missing.
Right, yes.
From the harbor.
And Brock's like, we got to find her. Oh, she looks so good.
And they're met by Mewtwo's subservience. It's Nurse Joy in a dress and in a hat. And Mewtwo's psychically controlling her. We find out later.
What about the weird Transylvanian chick? What was that all about?
Yeah, Miranda, the girl with the blue hair.
Yeah,
we're at the harbor.
Yeah,
there is a prophecy. This movie didn't need a fucking prophecy. The next one's got a prophecy in it. This movie didn't need a fucking prophecy.
Was she with Giovanni, or was she just hanging out, passing out prophecy?
She was just there. We'll talk about her a little bit more at the end.
So she is a character that has like...
No, we'll talk about her in a minute.
She has a name. She's just not the weird chick, because that's what I refer to her as.
So Ash, Misty, and Brock are met by this Nurse Joy character at the foot of the stairs, and they're led up into Mewtwo's lair. This beautiful castle, as I said, with windmills. It's on top of an island, which is like raised out of the water. And
when they first saw Nurse Joy, they was like, "You Nurse Joy?" She's like, "No, I'm not." They was like, "Oh, all right, our bad." Oh, okay. All right. We didn't realize Team Rocket was the Vikings. So.
Right, that was a better disguise than any of Team Rocket's disguises.
I'm not going to lie. I was kind of like, oh, shit, that is her. So
they bring them up to this they open this like big H.R. Giger doorway into this big room where there's 3 other trainers whose names are Nisha, Fergus, and Corey. It's in the credits.
Another dicky dude. There's always got to be one kind of like, hey, what's up? Like
the guy in the wife beater, yeah.
Like another Guido. I don't know. Is that racist? I don't know what the appropriate term for somebody that's all like, forget about it. Like, I guess Italian racist stereotype.
I guess Italian would be the appropriate term.
Hashtag racist stereotype.
If I was going to be PC about it.
Right. Either way, he just seemed like douchey right off the rip.
Right. So she brings them there, and she's like, go ahead, get yourself acquainted, have some food. There's food on the table. My master's intentions will be clear soon or something. It won't be long until...
And at no point does Ash and Cole think, like, this is weird. I just feel like everything was really creepy. But, Ash has such a hard-on for battling. And
the ambiance and the environment of it, yeah, they definitely did get that creepy feel. The lighting, and it's really cool.
Like, Ash was like, do, I'm with it. Let's...
Oh, yeah.
Another badge on
Maybe we'll catch some new Pokemon.
Yeah, that's as a 10-year-old, you probably should be a little more, cautious as you just go to like castles and shit.
Caution is thrown to the wind. Also the guy, this dude thinks his Pidgeotto is a Pidgeot he thinks his Pidgeot's a Pidgeotto because he refers it to as a Pidgeotto.
He didn't say a Pidgeot.
He says Pidgeotto, but it's a Pidgeot, a
okay.
Pidgeot, whatever.
Right. Well, 3 different Pokemon.
And then later, Team Rocket calls a Scyther and Alakazam, so I don't know.
Okay, I thought it was just me. I was like, oh shit. I thought I was wrong. I was like, all right, it's a lot of Pokemon to remember, and I don't know them all. But I play Pokemon Go, and I was like, huh, could have swore. But you know, it's funny. I'm glad you said that because I just wrote it off. It's like it was silhouetted, so I was like, maybe.
Yeah, no, they fucked up.
See the spoons. I don't know. So it was awesome to see so many badass Pokemon gathered together in the Great Hall. I wouldn't have mind that they just start naming them all. They named a few, but I want to go. Let's get them all. You know, because I love naming them and hearing the names because I'm not as initiated.
Well,
with
it was
lore.
So let's see. Corey, who is the guy, he has a Pidgeot that he calls Pidgeotto, a Scyther,
Really
a Hitmonlee,
don't like that.
a Venusaur whose name was Brute Root.
Hey, don't listen. In my Pokemon Go, I changed the names to all my Pokemon.
Oh yeah, you've
So
got to name your Pokemon.
Listen, don't question. That's like questioning why somebody named their kid. There's a woman named America Barrera out there. Just imagine, did they call her Erica, America, USA? Like, how did that work? So come on.
Yeah.
Pokemon, I mean, Ash felt like asshole for not having names.
So
my Pokemon doesn't have a nickname, but I got the bad Charizard.
Pidgeot, Scyther, Hitmonlee, Venusaur, Rhyhorn, and Sandslash. That was Corey's crew. The dude in the wife beater, that's got to be Fergus. There's no way that's Corey. That's Fergus.
Hey, I've got my Pokemon over here, huh?
He had Vaporeon, Tentacruel, Gyarados, Golduck, Nidoqueen, and Seaking.
Tentacruel gives me the creeps.
And they're like chilling in the fountain, like really cool ambiance, like I said.
Yeah, no, it was dope. It was like fucking badass.
And then the woman, who I guess Nisha, had Wigglytuff, Rapidash, Ninetales. I love Ninetales.
Rapidash.
Dugong, and Vileplume.
Rapidash is like a badass My Little Pony dude. One of the build My Little Ponies. Rapidash is on my pick. You know, Rapidash is on the squad.
Suddenly the lights go out. A beam of blue light shoots down the center of this big, massive spiral staircase. Enter Mewtwo.
Because he's a diva.
Nurse Joy explains he's the most powerful Pokemon on Earth.
And then Fergus is like, what? Ain't no Pokemon be no master. I was like,
Mewtwo's
oh,
like,
shit.
fuck you. And just sends him, oh no, he goes, quiet, human. From now on, I am the one who makes the rules. And Nurse Joy says it in unison with him. And then Mewtwo's like, I don't have a need for you anymore. And he's just like, spell over. And she's like, and like falls, and Brock catches her.
I think for a moment I was like, oh shit, it is Nurse Joy.
And he mentions, he's like, I've erased your memory of the last few weeks.
Right.
Which raises an eyebrow. Why was that necessary? Why'd you have to erase my memory?
Shit got weird. Listen.
I was just born. Don't judge me.
Listen,
I still have to figure this world out.
I'm working through shit, all right? All right, listen. We're not going to talk about what happened last Thursday. Now I understand where that goes. God damn it. Erase that shit. He's like Rick from Rick and Morty when he erased Morty's memories. Take it for granted.
Yeah.
Like,
Mewtwo, you need to stop erasing people's memories.
He definitely doesn't like certain things. You know Mewtwo is oh shit, I don't want you to remember that. I'm going to erase that shit. So he's kind of creepy, like right off the rip. He's using people's puppets.
So maybe that's why Ash just never remembers anything, because Mewtwo's just erased his brain so many times that it's starting to degrade, he's starting to forget shit.
He's like 19-year-old Professor Xavier. You know 19-year-old Professor Xavier was doing some freaky shit. So now
Team Rocket finds their way to the laboratory where the Charizard and everything's being made, and Jesse pulls a Riker and leans on one of the computer consoles and sets it off. It actually activates it, grabs Meowth, and pulls him through the gene sequencer or whatever to be cloned. Mm-hmm. And they pull it out, but not before it makes this whole clone. Why don't Jesse and James know what's going on if Giovanni's the one who...
say that because it's like when you say they make their way there, like why do they got to sneak if they work for Giovanni?
You know what? Because they're like the Invader Zim of Team Rocket. Giovanni's like, fine, you guys try to get the fucking Pikachu. It'll keep them away from our important projects. Nobody tell them about Mewtwo. Is
James like his like nephew? That he's like responsible for.
They were like both street kids. Jesse and James were both kind of like street kids that were running around.
So James is like a little boy hole.
He came from a rich family and he ran away or something. And
so he became a little boy hole, and Giovanni took him under his wing. And then they've served their purpose, so it's like, all right, whatever.
Jesse's his drag mother, and and she introduced him to Giovanni.
I don't understand their obsession with Pikachu when there's other Pikachus. Like, I mean, the only reason why Ash's Pikachu is so dope is because of his connection with Ash.
Fucking idiot. Have you ever watched Invader Zim? They're like Invader Zim.
I'm not gonna.
Oh no. Oh, well, Zim is he belongs to an alien race of conquerors. They go out and conquer worlds, and he's so full up his own ass, thinking he's the shit. And the leaders are like, he keeps fucking shit up, like destroying their bases on accident and stuff, and doesn't get that he's a nuisance. And the leaders are like, fine, yes, you're right. We do totally have this really important mission for you. It's on this shitty planet, Earth. Yeah, it's really important, so don't fuck it up. So they send him to Earth just to get rid of him. And they don't give a shit about Earth. And he's there thinking it's so important that he conquers Earth. And I think that's Team Rocket's like, we got to catch this Pikachu. And Giovanni's like, sure, whatever will keep you away from what's really important.
It definitely came around that time of Ed and Eddie when I was too old for cartoons. You know, I'm 36 for those listening, if you want to do the math. And certainly the reference, I mean, Team Rocket... You know, they're in a situation where they're seeing these clones. You know, it was weird. It was creepy. And then what came next?
Mewtwo pretty much explains everything. Like, I'm going to destroy humanity, at least in the English version.
What was weird to me was, all right, I'm going to kill the humans. Ash is like, well, what are you going to do with our Pokemon? He's like, all right, I'm going to kill them. But then, didn't he kind of switch his plan where he was going to keep them alive? Like, what was his ultimate plan?
The wild Pokemon he was going to let survive.
No, the ones that were there, like, remember when he captured them in the balls and then...
Oh, to make clones of them.
Right, but then let's say that Team Rocket wasn't
Wait,
there.
no. Did he make clones of them?
He did.
Yeah, he did, and then he let them go.
Right, well, but what was he going to do if Team Rocket wasn't there?
There's so much... And then...
Because Ash busted up the machine...
So what happens is they try to attack him, which is just pointless. He's
you mean
shooting him back.
35 people kept running at the telekinetic? Like, how many times do you got to... And Ash is like, oh, no, I'm going to get him now.
But then Ash goes, fuck this. I want to challenge you to a real Pokemon battle. You say you're the most powerful Pokemon master. Fucking battle me to a real Pokemon battle.
Big
and
mistake.
Mewtwo's like, okay... And then he doesn't fucking battle him in a real Pokemon battle. A real Pokemon battle would be Mewtwo with his Pokemon against Ash with his Pokemon. Instead, he's like, all right, I'll have my Charizard fight her Charizard, and then my Venusaur fight his Venusaur, and then my Blastoise fight his Blastoise. No, that doesn't... That's not a real Pokemon battle. That's not what Ash fucking challenged you to.
Let's say this. First of all, if you remember, Mewtwo makes the fucking rules. And
that's not a real. Regardless.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate because obviously there's that frustration, but it's a movie and we switching it up. Because first of all, if you're gonna be mad at that, I gotta let you know that one of my biggest fucking pet peeves in all of science fiction is fucking clones. I have never seen a clone storyline that I love, and I mean I don't know if it's because clones.
Fair Point Podcast. Fair Point Podcast. The Search for Klaus. Fair Point Podcast. Anyway.
Yeah. All right. We're going to go back to that. That you know, you guys explain that to me. But here's the thing. Whether it's Spider-Man in the Clone Saga, which was atrocious, or whether it was Attack of the Clones in the Star Wars prequels, or just the idea of how fucking creepy the idea of clones are, when you introduce the notion of clone Pokemon with their scarring.
I don't mind it in this.
But now there has to be some way to determine that these clones are somehow superior, right? Which to me was weird later on when he shuts down their extra abilities. Then how are they going to be superior because they're just more badass? There's a lot of inconsistencies in this final climactic battle, but I'm going to say that the reason why the mirror battling was necessary because if you watched battle after battle done traditionally in the movie, just like when Duke was injured by Serpentor in G.I. Joe, the animated movie, when you're seeing the animated movie in the tradition of animated movies, they're changing it up. They're breaking the formula. They're doing things that you didn't think would happen in the series. I thought Charizard, Blastoise, and Venusaur was the most badass Pokemons I could imagine, but there are even badder versions, the clones, because that's what Mewtwo is. He's a clone that's trying to justify he's more badass, and it's a testament to the fact that, are you? Because there's nothing more badass than love.
well, yeah. So
these tears, what are they good for? To feel, Mewtwo, to feel. Humanity is the greatest gift of them all. I don't know. We can do this all day.
Yeah, Mew shows up. Well, Mew's been there the whole time, but
just
basically
weirdly floating around,
and again in
disconnected but still invested emotionally.
In the Japanese version, Mew is just like, no, real Pokemon are better. And Mewtwo's like, nah, the clones are better. And Mew's like, nah, real Pokemon. In this one, Mew's like, strength doesn't come from this or whatever. It comes from your heart. So it's a little different. But
do we allow ourselves to believe that in the same world where Amber is still alive, that Mew represents the innocence of Mewtwo? That like somehow the psychic echo is that innocence that perpetually lives with? Because I'm getting emotional right now thinking of Amber. Are we just gonna like just ignore that this little girl is dead? Because god damn.
Yeah, and this happens. Mew shows up right after Ash he comes out of the smoke, because he runs off to save Pikachu when Mewtwo captures him.
Badass when I first saw it was pretty fucking badass.
Behind him, he's leading all the real Pokemon.
That's what it was
behind
supposed to play,
him.
that hard rock. Like, I think I got a boner when I saw that, but not in a gay way. Just not that there's anything wrong with being gay, but like in a man way. Like, hey, hell yeah.
There's all that phallic
America.
Imagery.
Man, it was just like I was proud to be a man. Like Ash grew up in that moment. Like Ash could have been a little boy out there running around chasing badges, but in that moment he fucking nutted up.
And then what's weird though is they all start fighting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So man, there's so much to talk about here. So
that battle, like it got with Pikachu versus Dark Pikachu, there was like the slapping, the turn the other cheek kind of thing.
Well, Pikachu refuses to fight,
right?
And then the Dark Pikachu just keeps hitting it.
Yeah.
So
he
Ash,
rope-a-doped him.
We're watching them fight, and fucking does some epic score play? No, some cheap ripoff of "Take My Picture" by Filter plays.
Okay.
Singing about
the brother song,
fighting our brothers.
Oh, I thought that was a weird mix because I don't understand. It was like brothers, but they were beating the shit out of each other.
I had to look up who that was too. It was Blessed Union of Souls. Does that sound familiar to you? They were a one-hit wonder. I was like, why does that sound familiar to me?
It sounded like something I heard, maybe.
Exactly. I was like, why does that sound familiar to me? So I had to look it up. They sing that. You forgot about this song. They sing the song, She Likes Me for Me, not because I hang with Leonardo or that guy that played in Fargo. I think his name was Steve.
I feel like a song like that played when I was in some like hole in the wall bar, way drunker than I should have been.
It was like 97, something like that. It was a big song.
Well, then that means I was using a fake ID when I was definitely way drunker than I should have been. But it was a moment that was definitely charged, no pun intended. Seeing the Pokemon go at it. And here for me was one of the biggest moments of bullshit. You have all of the humans realizing that Pokemon fighting Pokemon is not okay.
Oh my god.
I was like, wait, does that mean that there's no more Pokemon?
Oh my god.
But, spoiler alert, they do address that if you think about it.
Let me hold on. Let's they do.
You get to the ending, what happens with Mewtwo does.
Yeah, so let's use I'm going to bring some actual quotes from the fucking movie. Nurse Joy says, Pokemon aren't meant to fight. Not like this. It's useless. What can come out of it? Brock is like, why can't Mewtwo understand? It's not right to force Pokemon to fight this way. I was prepared for trouble, but not for this. Now I can see how horrible fighting really is. I promise never to fight again if you will. These are actual lines of dialogue in a franchise built around competitive fighting. It's like if this was the WWE, the movie.
But let's really think about, Nate, what they may have actually done in their brilliance, because how does the movie end? How does the whole sequence
erases their memories,
right? So
and erases the entire growth of the characters throughout the movie.
The movie takes an opportunity to shit on itself. It's pretty much trolling itself, the fans, the trainers,
reset,
the Pokemon. And there's that moment of like, wait, am I an asshole for enjoying this? Because for me, that was always one of the greatest things that I had to defend about Pokemon was when, your older sister or an adult or anybody that wasn't a fan, they'd be like, why do they make the animals fight? Why they can't fight themselves? And you'd be like, And then you got...
It's a sport.
Well, first of all, a human don't have an electro whip or a fucking sunstorm. What the fuck do you mean? Why do humans ain't
It's because it's fun is the real reason, because it's a cool thing to watch and it's fun. But like in
the world of Pokemon, these animals have abilities and they want to use against
in the world of Pokemon, that's how Pokemon grow. So like it's their naturally a Pokemon wants to seek out a trainer. It helps them grow.
It's like watching a ram, cut its horns on another ram.
Yeah.
Although sometimes...
But it's also a sport. They're sentient creatures, and it is a sport.
Right, but sometimes I feel it's a little condescending when, at least if I was Pokemon and, trainers like, do the one attack, and it's like, what the fuck else you think? What else you thought I was going to do? I got 4 attacks. Like,
you want to come out here and battle?
I feel like sometimes it's like, you know what? What is your real role other than to tell me what's obvious? What did you thought I was going to do? Piss on myself?
All right, so Marquis doesn't like coaches.
Are Pokemon retarded? Is that a part of it?
No, it's a trainer. Word? They're a trainer. It's the union between the two of them that
but again,
helps both of them grow. You teach me and I teach you. Pokemon.
But would
Gotta
the
catch them all.
Pokemon not
Gotta catch
instinctively
Pokemon.
use their innate abilities to survive? I feel like why, like in the wild, Pokemon are just like, I don't know what to do with all this fire and electricity.
Sure they do that, but that's the thing is you're training. It's like martial arts.
You know what? I'll have to just... is one of the biggest things 20 years later that always bothered me. I was like, fuck it, I guess, suspension of disbelief.
Well, it's like saying, why do wrestlers or UFC fighters have to train? People can't just fight on their own? Well, yeah, but
I, as a former amateur wrestling manager, my role was to be outside the ring and encourage my wrestler. But, it was for show because it was a part of the show.
Okay, sure.
So I didn't have a real practical... well, no, I did because I would.
Well, why do UFC fighters or boxers fight?
Working it out
because they're going to go up against other people who are probably going to spend some time training.
Okay, wait, I think I got it. So, and you may have said this, but as usual, narcissistically, I was listening to my own thoughts.
It's because, and then you just repeat exactly what I just said.
Well, I think that's part of the process. Listen, I'm aware, but I'll go back and play this later once it's published, and I'll be like, oh yeah, you did just say that. So it's like a boxer. With a coach in the corner, because I vaguely remember hearing you say that 5 seconds ago. So when you're in the midst of battle, you're just like, I forgot everything that I knew how to instinctively do because I'm about to shit myself, and you hear somebody throw a left. Oh shit! I was terrified. I forgot I had hands. I'll throw a left.
Yeah.
Throw a right.
Yeah.
Because again, this dude is literally shooting fire to my face. I can't think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally.
All right. Well, thank you, Nathan. This whole podcast now serves a purpose other than I don't know, talking.
And like a Pikachu, Pikachus use stones, but like a Charmander can't evolve if it doesn't go out and fight and battle and forge this union with a trainer. So it's part of their
isn't it also
culture.
sad too that evolution means death for the previous form.
I mean, yeah, that's life.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it is sad. That's one of the things we have to learn to deal with growing up.
All the passion that we've expressed for this entity, yeah, that's how it goes. I don't know. Let's back up a little bit, Nate.
Come on, dude. You sound like my girlfriend.
Well, all right. Misogynist much? Listen, all right.
No. Oh, my God. I wasn't saying you sound like women. I was saying I guess I am kind of cold and Vulcan-like.
Okay, all right. I didn't know where you was going with that, but
I guess I'm a little too Vulcan for my own good. Is where I was going with that.
I don't know. I thought you was calling me a sissy boy or something.
No. It was more self-deprecating than that. It was that I don't have social skills.
I was like, what Nancy Pants cured about the metapods and all the canopy? Listen,
no,
there's something that again resonates with the circle of life and just the idea that if I can get real for a second, I look at my young daughters and I see these amazing creatures, these people that are going to grow into, shitty humans and grown-ups. And, they're going to be like all these...
How very honest of you.
Well, I mean, I got a 20-year-old. Like I tell you, I'm a shitty human grown up. But kids are adorable. They're, you look at a Pikachu versus a Raichu or, a Charmander versus a Charizard. And, even Mew versus Mewtwo, there's an innocence that the earliest stages, when I look at my children, I'm like, wow, effectively... you're going to die this character, this little, I talk like this, and I say spaghetti. Like, you're going to learn how to say fucking spaghetti, and then it won't be cute because you'll be like, I need $20 for some fucking spaghetti, Dad. Like, you were never there for me. It's like, I wish you still said spaghetti. And so, that's what's sad about the evolution of Pokemon is that, you look at it in life and you look at, innocence and how it will eventually. I got a splinter from your table. It's distracting.
Don't fucking hit my table when
this
we're
is recording.
recording.
This is, I'm sorry, but I'm angry. As much as you're cold and detached, I'm very passionate about the evolution of Pokemon.
Yeah, but it's sad, but it's also beautiful, like life.
Agree, disagree. I'm not a fan of things dying or changing. I want things. Well,
that's fine, but you're struggling against the way the universe works. Then
have we met? Gladly.
I guess that is where gods are forged.
We talk about something that debuted over 20 years ago. You want to talk about something that you loved 20 years ago?
Speaking of talking about something that debuted over about 20 years ago. So all the Pokemon are fighting. Pikachu's getting the shit slapped out of himself by Nega Pikachu.
Yeah.
And Ash runs out screaming, "You gotta stop right now!" Which, come on, man, you're about to go down history books. You're about to die. Your last words are, "You gotta stop right now." Think of something better. Oh, man, it wasn't. I was going to say, run out like reciting Marquis's poem with the loudspeaker, but that's a story that was pre-recording.
Right. Well, even with his shout-out to me in my poetic...
you should have just come up behind the skinhead and yelled, "You gotta stop right now!"
With no context of me yelling a poem at a skinhead or a KKK member at a protest.
Yeah, everybody's just wondering.
Roughly around.
They're like, fuck Pokemon the first movie. I want to hear that story.
Well, it happened around the same time, so I don't know. Maybe I was inspired by Ash, but yeah, that's another podcast we'll talk about when I went up against a Nazi with poetry. But Ash, I remember watching a movie and crying so hard at the climactic scene where Ash sacrificed himself.
Let's break it down. So he runs out, he gets caught in the crossfire between Mew and Mewtwo, and it turns him to stone.
Which you probably should never, ever come between two Omega level psychics and kind of use yourself as a shield. And then, why did he turn gray? What?
He turned to stone.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, which is weird. And then Pikachu runs out.
That was a thing that happens.
Apparently.
They petrified him with maybe they carbonated him, with just the force of their psychic blast. They created
You said you cried so hard? So Pikachu runs out, and Pikachu's crying, "Pika, Pika, P," and P, and
he's not crying yet. He's more
and he's
like
trying
flustered.
to shock him.
Right,
before he gives up and runs out of juice.
Electricity doesn't resuscitate somebody, but I guess
not when they're stone.
Poketears.
He's a stone. He's turned to stone.
So Poketears, what? They lubricated
it makes no sense. It's dumb. And then they cry, and he comes back to life. But
and we're still talking about a movie called Pokemon, so don't be like,
let's talk. You said you cried in the theaters. Okay, I'm watching this scene as an adult a couple days ago to prepare for this podcast, and it's been stated on the show before, no disrespect to Veronica Taylor, I do have an appreciation for Ash and for the anime. I've been trying to be more fair to it in more recent episodes, but as people know, I have a beef with the anime and with Ash and with the lack of emotion in the show. So me and you come from two totally different viewpoints.
In the movie, the lack of emotion
in the show in general, like with these characters. So for me,
even that episode that we talked about with Charizard and keeping the flame, where Charmander keeping the flame.
I'm a fucking Vulcan. I know. So
wait, which one is it? You're a Vulcan and there's no emotion.
That's what I was saying. Oh, but okay. So let me get to it. So watching this scene in the movie, I'm totally void of any emotional attachment to Ash, and not in real life. That hearing Ash introduce my podcast makes tears well up in my eyes. But I like to
portrayed on the anime.
I like to poke fun at Ash, and watching Ash die isn't going to really tug at my heartstrings. But
initially, or
watching Pikachu cry, was enough to choke me up. If someone had called me, I would have been like, "Hi, hold on."
Well, no, but that's
hello.
That's what it was. It wasn't Ash dying.
It was watching Pikachu cry.
Yeah, no.
Oh my God.
Well, no,
heartbreaking. Hearing that little Pikachu voice cry is heartbreaking. With no context, I would have been just as heartbroken.
First of all, you got to understand, I remember watching it initially.
You show that shit to your mom, she'd be like, "Yeah, it's the devil, man. That shit's still the devil."
listen.
I don't care. Only the devil made me cry like this.
I'll never.
Jesus
forget,
wouldn't have done that.
I'll never forget the respect that I had for walking out of the theater and saying, "Wow, this movie made me cry." And I remember thinking, I took my wife and my oldest daughter, and afterwards it was like, "Wow, that is an amazing movie." And it was because of Pikachu, and it was because you saw this brave, impetuous, independent character come to a level where he blatantly said, like, this dude right here, say what you will, this is my motherfucking nigga. And I ride for him. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to see that,
to Mewtwo, and Mewtwo's like, you're a fucking fool then, but no, Pikachu stood by his side, and
that became
in a 3-syllable vocabulary can emote like such a performance.
I mean, you never heard something more heartfelt than Pika Pika.
When he's electrocuting him,
all of that. I mean, that'll go down in the annals of history. It's probably one of the most inarticulate, emotional sequences of dialogue, and it's because you felt like the voice actor for Pikachu. You felt that raw pain, like this is my best friend, and it was so heartbreaking because again, it reminded you of when Optimus Prime died. If you were lucky enough to watch that back in '86 or old enough, to see something animated make you feel that you're not watching something animated, that you're not watching something that's very fantastical or something that's supposedly made for children. You're watching death and loss and pain. And it came across in a very satisfying way. And then to see all the other Pokemon start to cry, and then when their magic tears rained upon Ash, it was kind of like, wait, what? When did that become a thing? And it's not like the clone tears. Or regular. It was like all Poke tears.
They all floated in the air and just went to Ash. And why? Because Ash is so important. And and the fucking prophecy. And I'm sorry, but no.
Oh, you know what? No. I again, in my infinite need to defend Pokemon, I decided in that moment that Pokemon were inherently magical.
Well, what message does that send to the children? Oh, I'm sorry. Is your mom not coming back yet? Well, you're not crying hard enough.
Well,
maybe if you cry hard enough, she'll come back from the dead. Or Dr. Fuji, that's why Amber's not back. You didn't cry hard enough.
But by trying to resurrect your mother or daughter, you create Mewtwo. And if anime has taught us anything, is that you should always try to resurrect your loved ones because though you will cause unspeakable catastrophe and horror, you will make amazing things happen as kind of a byproduct, like Full Metal Alchemist or pretty much most anime. So always, go for bringing back people from the dead, and you're going to always get a Pet Cemetery situation, and it's going to make for a great story. No, your loved one won't come back. That's fucking ridiculous. But
but thank you for Mewtwo.
Open up a world.
I'm going to take this Master Ball and be on my way.
You'll open up the door to something amazing and give us a God clone. That kind of flies off with, his God clone, and Mew.
Yeah, he erases everybody's memory. They all fly away, transports everybody back to the docks. But the girl with the Furo, nowhere to be seen. And
wait.
I love this.
Right. You mean the girl that set out, but she never made it to the actual tournament?
Yeah. She's fucked. She got lost in the storm. Mewtwo doesn't. Mewtwo didn't send her back.
Listen. First of all, to be clear, it was a test. And it was very, there were about 100+ trainers.
Yeah, but only 4 of them left after the boats were shut down.
Right, but they told everybody what it was. And a lot of trainers were like, fuck that noise, we going out. Well, 4.
Yeah.
So
hey, we play with fire.
We saw people die in the prologue, and we knew that this was playing for keeps. I mean, it's kind of harsh if you think about it, because you keep bringing it up, and it's like, damn, that is dark. But it was a storm.
I'm just having fun with it,
man.
No,
please. You listen, go back and watch it, and you'll be like, oh, shit. They could do a memorial. She's kind of like Bree Tanner from Twilight, where, she died.
I don't.
Oh, man,
sorry.
The nerd. Listen, I have daughters, all right? My nerd spans into many different places. But no, if you're not familiar with this young girl in the movies, did you at least see the movies?
No, I didn't.
Oh, the movies are phenomenal. The books are great. I just have an issue with how anticlimactic the last book is. Although the movie, it was actually better. But there's a young girl. Of course, we all know the premise of Twilight. There's these glowy, diamondy vampires, and there's a young girl who's turned into a vampire by the bad vampires, and she was just like a regular girl who was just like living her life, and then she gets drafted into the vampire army. And so in the movie, it's funny because she dies, and it's not remarkable. But Stephenie Meyer decides to create a book where they show her life up until where she dies. And it makes her more sympathetic. So in the movie, she's in it for 10 seconds. But in the book, she has this, like, you know, she loves chocolate and, you know, next Thursday she wants to. And then her last, like, moments were so heartbreaking. So, you know, in a sense, the character that, you know, disappeared is the sense that, you know,
there's a whole story we don't know.
There was somebody that set out and she was the greatest Pokemon trainer in her region, and she has a family somewhere that, you know, is never going to see her again. And that's fucking dark for a kid's movie. I took my 4-year-old. We had plush animals with us. And, you know, right off the rip, you got bloody, you know, people in the fucking laboratory. And
you're leaving the movie and your daughter's like, Daddy, what happened to the girl with the Firo? What girl with the Firo?
Is Amber going to come back?
You paid too close attention. Well, that wasn't in the theaters, luckily.
Oh, it wasn't?
No.
Okay. All right.
So I do love this scene, though, when they're back at the dock center thing. They're confused about how they got there, and this is actual dialogue up to a certain point, at least. Hey guys, how did we wind up in this place anyway? Well, I guess we're just here because we're here. Yeah, let's eat. Hey, quit camping on that shit and pass it to the left, Misty. Like,
listen, that's again one of the moments where Pokemon was just existential, maybe without trying.
They were stoned.
No,
they were like, "This is just the normal." Well, they get stoned so much they were like, "Oh well, this has happened before. Let's eat."
And it's one of those things where, especially when having Brock, who always got the eyes, "Hey, brother, we're here because we're here," and it's like, yes, you are.
He sees Mew fly away, and he's like, man, when I first started my journey, I saw magical Pokemon, and I think I just saw another one. And then
bitchy.
Brock goes, well, maybe you're just seeing things, Ash.
Oh,
and
was
then,
it Misty? Wait, what did
well,
Misty
then Misty
say?
goes, maybe he's not. Or either way, vice versa.
Yeah. Because if I'm not mistaken, it was bitchy. Excuse me, Misty.
Yeah, Misty, are you going to pass that fucking shit? Yeah.
I'm just saying, this is what the problem is. Once again, Ash trying to live. Here come hateful ass
Gotta
Misty.
shut him down.
No, you're a dumbass. You don't know shit that you see. Like, come on, man. First of all, Ash has one job, to fucking find Pokemon. So, of the hundreds of Pokemon he's already encountered, he sees another one, and you're going to write that shit off? Only go out and look for Pokemon y'all never seen before. Now you're going to discount another one? Number 102?
Let me play devil's advocate for Misty here. Ash pulls his Pokedex out to, like, identify a Krabby, and he's caught a Krabby before. Like, Ash has severe Alzheimer's.
No, he's a 10-year-old boy. He gets hyped.
I think Mewtwo's erased his mind more. Just like how in that Rick and Morty episode you brought up, we didn't see all those times that Rick's erased Morty's memory.
I think he only had one encounter with Mewtwo.
I think Mewtwo's erased Ash's memory more times than we know.
Listen, Ash, we put a lot of pressure on Ash, but he's 10. How fucking smart and memorable were you, or whatever the word for having a great memory, at 10 years old? Like,
Mewtwo's like, I'm trying to learn a little bit more about the world, and I need an idiot who has the dumb luck to survive all these horrible, like...
No one ever said Ash was a
all
genius.
This horrible, like,
he was
stimulus
brave.
he goes through, getting set on fire or electrocuted. So Mewtwo comes and gets Ash, and he's like, I want to see what happens when a human sticks metal into a socket. Will you just do that? And Ash is like, sure. Always... Then
he
all right, erases his memory,
sends him back out there,
drops him back in Viridian.
No, he didn't know Ash when he first saw him until he was spying on him. I don't know. I would like to believe that ultimately, I don't know. I lost my train of thought because I'm just pissed off at how bitchy Misty is. It just, she speaks to that voice that's always trying to cut you down, because I feel like Ash would have been even greater if he didn't, because Brock was always his bro. You can remember a hateful word. Like, sometimes Brock would be like, maybe Ash. But Misty's like, Ash, you're so stupid. At one point, I think I would have snapped on Misty, be like, bitch! Because, another thing that made me mad about Misty is that she never carried her weight until later on, where she would be walking around with the little Togepi. Come on, man. Like, where's your contribution to the team? Brock had fucking Onyx. Like, he was legit a contribution to the situation.
Misty did a lot too. They were both gym leaders.
Once she got
Brock
further,
was just trying to breed. Like Misty was competitive and battling, and Misty was a little more badass with her Pokemon than
and
Brock.
she got further introduced in the series, but initially she seemed to be kind of like a annoying, whiny dead weight.
Why the fuck were either of them traveling with him? It should have been the story of Ash and Gary.
But that was a weird relationship.
See, I come from the manga, and I'm talking about in development of the anime. Like, I don't understand why they had the first two gym leaders travel with the main character. Well,
because to me, Ash was like, if you remember, you know what it was? Do you remember the wizard with Fred Savage?
Yeah.
So
and Jenny Lewis, she's a country singer now. The little girl in there, she's like an alternative country singer. Yeah.
I had to look her up. Yeah. So you have this little precocious boy, and both Misty. Misty. The issue I had with Misty is because Misty represents that girl that's a little older and she's a little more knowledgeable of the world, so she's condescending to a boy because boys haven't matured yet.
Yeah.
So she's that elder voice of that. I know you know better, but I'm gonna still do this anyways. And so, in a way, it was almost like Misty was more maternal and Brock was paternal. So they kind of were these guardians because otherwise you had a 10-year-old out in the wild and you got Misty being, 12 to 14 and Brock being like 15. So it was like a family.
Have you watched Pokemon The Origin?
No.
Watch it. And that's a little closer to what I wanted out of a Pokemon anime. You've got to watch it. It's so great. It basically is a straight adaptation of the games and a little more like serious, a little bit more not like for adults. It's still totally appropriate for children.
Yeah, I'm with it. If it's a great story, I'm rewatching watching the Netflix Voltron series, and it's if you're not watching that, just the idea of something revisiting something that was established a long time ago. That's really good. And in the conversation about great anime and animation in general, for those who may be listening, although I can imagine why you'd be listening to a Pokemon podcast and not be a fan of Pokemon and anime, but if you are, it's something there with this series specifically and the genre in general. If you're not a fan, they're great stories. And in a world where there are a lot of great stories in a particular genre, Pokemon for me is at the top. It's not the most violent. It's not the most vicious. But the movie showed exactly why it's endeared for over 2 decades. And that's because it has heart. Not to be corny or heavy-handed, but that's really what, and I think you agree, the movie continues to bring that message of heart. Because on paper, Mew shouldn't have been able to beat Mewtwo, and the non-clone Pokemon shouldn't have been able to beat the clone Pokemon. I mean, Mewtwo got cocky. I'll shut down their special abilities. It's like, all right, calm the fuck down.
Yeah, but you're right. There's something not factored into the equations, and that's that divine spark.
Yeah, the beauty, where you forget sometimes in this world, you're looking for something to be, badass. And sometimes it's okay for something to be good, And I think that's really what Pokemon, and by an extension, Pikachu, is about goodness. And Ash, he could be goofy and one-dimensional, but in the anime, at least for me, he came across as someone that I aspire to, somebody that wants to go into the world and do right.
Hey, that's true. There
are the Chuck Norris of
I can make a lot. I make
anime.
Most of my shots at Ash come down to his naivety.
Leave Ash alone.
His idiocy.
Ash lives matter.
His idiocy, his naivety, and his lack of skill. Because Red, the prototype for Ash, the character which Ash is based on, is such a badass, and Ash is kind of a chump, but you know what? That's okay. Like some people are, and you are right. Like he does have perseverance. He cares.
Well, he's a surrogate.
He cares passionately about so much.
Ash is a surrogate for the fan, such as myself, that didn't or doesn't play the games. Because I looked at handheld games as not as sophisticated as the consoles, and there was that distinction between the tabletop card players and the handheld game players, and you started to for my generation, we were like, oh man, I gotta play the latest, most expensive console because I'm chilling around with my early 20s, late teen crowd. So if you saw someone playing with a handheld, this was before handhelds were cool. This was like, oh, you're a dork.
Oh yeah,
or Pokemon, you're playing the cards. Oh,
Pokemon was the only reason to have a fucking Game Boy.
Right, but if you had a Game Boy, you were usually like a pimply faced weirdo that shopped at Hot Topic. Before, again, Hot Topic was cool, because if you remember back in the day, the Trenchcoat Mafia shopped at Hot Topic, and Marilyn Manson fans were the only one that went there. And if you went into a Hot Topic and you were hip hop, that was in the era of like, you know, East Coast versus West Coast, baggy clothes, and being a fucking badass thug. You watched, you know, wrestling because they had the NWO and the DX, and you had gangster rap, and Eminem was as angry as shit. You know, it was no smiling in the late 90s. But then the 2000s came and things kind of were, you know, Puffy was kind of dancing around because Pac and Biggie got killed. And people was like, maybe we shouldn't be so fucking angry. Because if you remember, we went from NWA to fucking, you know, Are We There Yet? In the span of like, you know, 12 years.
Yeah.
So you think about fuck the police to, is he playing the police? Like, look at Ice-T.
It is crazy to think about, like,
Pokemon was right there in that.
If you weren't there, like, how intensely, like,
you couldn't
NWA
like
was a problem for the status quo.
Imagine being a black kid watching all this happening, and you wanted to be innocent, but to be innocent meant you were a bitch ass and you were a traitor to the race. Like, you had the LA riots, the OJ Simpson verdict. I mean, Pokemon existed at a time where it was a decision that could get you hurt. You know, we talk about today with the Pokemon Go and people getting, you know, hurt. But back then, just liking Pokemon could get you beat up.
You know what?
Pokemon cards.
It's funny, though, because I hear you. You're right. And by the time I got to high school, when I was in middle school, though, I've told the story before, but, like, it was really something that brought people of different, like, backgrounds.
But it's secret. You watch Stranger Things, like, you had to get the fucking tabletop games, and you couldn't go out and not get your ass beat.
Well, what I mean is,
watching that was how it was in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, you're right. But I've also told a story before about how this guy that normally would have beat my ass saw me playing Pokemon under my desk while the teacher was talking. He was like, oh shit, did you see Ash caught this one in the episode this morning that could change into any Pokemon? And I was like, yeah, I got one on my team. Check it out. Like, and this dude normally would have just beat my ass for anything, right? Yeah. Take my Game Boy. Yeah.
Like, well, again,
but he saw I was playing Pokemon and he respected that.
Me and Rashard, like, we were college freshmen scared of being fucking college freshmen away from home. We bonded over fucking Pokemon, and it kept us sane around, you know, there was drugs and sex and violence, and we weren't ready to be a part of that world yet. We were, and I'm just now realizing that, holding on to innocence, and Pokemon gave us that refuge, which is why we went into the spectral realm. God damn. So Pokemon served as the last vestige of innocence for me, and maybe in a way for society, but also a turning point.
For society in general.
Because it was
No, this is Silph Radio. I'll allow it.
Listen, it was 99. It was Y2K. We literally went through a transformation from 99 to 2000, where Pokemon came out 2 months before we thought collectively the world was going to end. So there was this kind of like white knuckling. Pokemon, gotta catch them all. The world's not gonna end.
Stock up on AA batteries now.
It was a crazy time in 99, and I remember feeling like the world was spiraling out of control because I was a huge fan of Tupac, and when he was assassinated, it hurt. And when Biggie was assassinated, and people were like, oh, assassinated. Well, for me, they were Martin Luther King and JFK. Tupac spoke to having a crack addicted mother and the father that wasn't there. Tupac was my life. Brenda's got a baby. I remember that spoke to my experiences being a teenage parent. So when I watched Pokemon, I saw something that was beautiful in a dark world. And it started to bring light into the world because it was the beginning of this invasion of anime and manga. And the idea that it was okay to like kid stuff or nerdy stuff. And now you watch movies like 21 Jump Street that make fun of the idea that being a nerd is okay or being gay is okay. Because back in the day, you couldn't be gay. You couldn't be a nerd. You couldn't be different. You couldn't be an individual. And now we've gone into the other direction where it's like, God damn, you motherfucking millennials are fucking... Like, to the point where my 4-year-old said something about a something challenge, and it's like, what do you know about a something? Like, whatever the challenge was in the vernacular.
Oh, the word challenge means something totally different now. I hear kids using the word challenge, and I'm like, wait.
It was like
What?
she was like the cinnamon challenge or whatever she said. It was like, oh, and I looked at her like, what? No, this ain't.
But like,
I was like opening the pickle jars. Like, is that the open the pickle jar challenge? It's like,
yeah, for
everything is
kids,
not
the word challenge has a different
everything's not a
meaning.
challenge.
Yeah, it
You
has
don't
a
have to challenge to everything. Just do
it has a different meaning. I think, like even without a camera on them and putting it on YouTube, I saw a kid was saying, like, I was at the store and Bean Boozled. Have you seen Bean Boozled? It's like the Harry Potter jelly beans where some of them taste gross and some of them taste good, but it's a game.
Right.
And they're like, oh, that's my favorite challenge. I'm like, it's not a challenge. It's a fucking packet of jelly beans that you buy at the store and you play the game.
Yeah.
A challenge.
Eat it. Right. And that, and so we as I hear us.
Silph Radio, episode 50, old people yelling about kids.
Dinosaurs.
In my day, there were 150 Pokemon.
Back in my day, people weren't idiots. It's got to be at some point where if you're a millennial listening, and by definition, Nathan, both you and I are millennials, but we're more in that XY.
Really? I don't. What the fuck is the definition?
38.
Of
I looked it up. 38 is as old as you can be.
You were born in what? 81.
81.
Oh, 85.
So 38. Like we're looking at 79.
And I love millennials. I think millennials are awesome. I think they're a great generation. I think they're one of the best generations. They're the greatest generation.
I've said this before.
Yes.
I've said it before. Illuminati, if you're real and listening, I'm down with population reduction, specifically targeting millennials. I'm with it.
Nah, I'm for millennials. I hate when people talk shit about millennials.
Fluoride in the water, chemtrails, bring that shit on.
Oh, millennials are entitled? Okay.
If I say more mass shootings, is it too soon? Because that's a false flag. Can we be real for a second? You realize
all right,
that, right?
This podcast is running its length.
Are we off the rails? Did it get too real?
We have one more thing to talk about the movie before we close the episode
Can I just say this to millennials just before I go too far off in one direction?
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, edit as you will or use it for something else. Listen. The reason is just like with women and black people. So here it is, hat trick. And white people, throw that in there too. All the other races, just stand by. And millennials, because with each of you, I see such great potential to be amazing. And there's this willful ignorance to your capabilities, and in each different category, whether we're talking to white people, black people, women, or millennials.
I like how you group in one of the.
Okay. I'm okay with.
I like how one of the demographics that you're throwing in there is half of the entire human race.
I don't care if it don't make sense. I'm gonna say it because it's inspiring. If you let me finish, not just you, Nathan, but this is more to the people that's listening. Like, what the fuck you saying? Hear me out. All right, if you're still listening to this, if it wasn't edited out, here's my point.
All right, so Asian men,
no,
brown men,
Asian men are
you guys
fine.
Can stop listening. You guys, this isn't.
You guys
don't have
are
to listen.
okay. You're excused
Unless you're a millennial, in which case, if you're a young Asian man, still listen. Old Asian men, you're off the hook.
Listen, because we got to get back to Pokemon. Here's the point, millennials. If you're still following, I need you all.
No, they can't listen to podcasts. Their attention span is way too short for this shit.
I know that I'm speaking to literally one person. After 100 years of this blasting through the airwaves, one person is listening at this point, and this is what I'm talking to. The reason why we sat down to do this podcast,
you're basically.
Later,
I'm sorry to interrupt you yet again, but hey, payback's a bitch. You're basically talking to the one millennial that when they decided if they wanted to download this podcast or not, skipped to this point of the podcast to hear a random clip, and happened to skip to this exact point.
It's serendipity. I'm okay with that. I'm a bolt of light streaming through the universe, and here we are. Here's the point. If I haven't already
5-star review. Let me just throw that out there. Give us a 5-star review to that person that listened before you turn the podcast off.
For this right here.
You may go.
All right. The reason why we put this whole episode and why we do what we do is for you to understand the greatness that has come before. And my greatest beef, anyone's beef with a millennial, so-called, a young person, is the idea that you don't have respect and reverence for that which came before that is great enough to have people speak at length and to dissect it, to love it, to cry for it. And if you don't experience things at that level, which I don't think you can on YouTube in 4-minute clips or on the Facebook posts, you got to get past this Snapchat world and go back to the greats. And Pokemon, the first movie, and the Pokemon first series, to me, is arguably some of the greatest entertainment I've ever experienced. And I could talk for hours more at length, and I still wouldn't tell you why it meant so much. And there's so many different things that happened at that time. But I want anybody listening to understand that I'm always passionate about people being their best. and getting the most out of life and creating things like Pokemon and living a life where, anything's possible. Living life kind of like Ash Ketchum.
So yeah, in other words, if you give up on your dreams, Marquis will fucking murder you.
I hope I could. I wish that was a thing. Go get him, Keith. Mewtwo can send me out there. I will fucking mercy kill you motherfuckers if you not being the best you. I wish I could come back as a wraith that would stalk people who don't fucking live their best life. That's it. I would draw the line like Eminem did with Trump or fucking...
No. I'm not surprised. I would have thought Eminem was Trump's biggest fan. Their values are nearly identical. Anyway, we're done with the politics. We're talking about...
all politics.
I want to talk about some mysteries before we move on. One in particular. The original Japanese trailer for this movie that we've been talking about, that we were talking about a little while ago.
2 hours ago.
It involved Misty, Miranda, the blue-haired girl that you were wondering about, Pikachu, and a young girl with pink hair. And basically you see a few shots that aren't actually in the movie, because that's how a lot of anime trailers go. They're not done with the animation. And you see Misty talking to this girl with pink hair, and it's like she's telling her a story or something, and then it says the movie's going to come out in July or whatever. And there's a lot of fan theorization that surrounds this. And I want to take a moment, because what I like to do on this show is I go balls to the wall. And interestingly enough, that's not a dirty phrase. It has to do with trains, the brass balls that are in the engine, the faster you go, the closer to the wall they get or something.
I guess I never even thought about it, because I guess I didn't assume that people threw their balls against the wall.
Or Pokeballs to the wall.
I didn't think that.
I go hard on this research, and I really want to debunk falsehoods, and I've got to the bottom of this. So the fan theorization seems to be that Misty's older, that this is an older Misty, and she's talking to who is probably originally intended to be her and Ash's daughter, and that the Pokemon anime was originally intended to end with the movie, and that this was going to be the finale to the whole anime and Ash's journey, and at the end of the movie we'd see a flash forward with them later in life. Now,
but that seems like it'd been way too... It wouldn't have followed with what was established. I didn't get a sense that this was an epic ending of Ash's journey. I thought it was an installment of more to come, especially after the reset with Mewtwo.
Entirely changing the movie would have taken a lot of work, so they probably didn't do that. And the anime was going to end if the Porygon incident hadn't happened in October, and this was going to come out in July, always. So it was never, even when the anime was going to end, it was never going to be the finale. And by that point, they probably knew it wasn't going to end. They probably knew how big Pokemon was and that they're going to keep it going.
But in a sense, it's funny, it did end for me.
Yeah.
It ended for me in a lot of ways, with Gary beating Ash, and then the movie.
Yeah.
And then the subsequent movies, I saw them, but they didn't have the same gravitas as the first movie.
True.
And they didn't make me weep. They didn't make me
I'm interested in this new one that's coming out. Have you seen this? Pokemon the movie, I Choose You?
I may watch it, but again, it's one of those things where it's bittersweet.
Well, what it is it's a reboot of Ash's journey, starting with him getting Pikachu.
I'm aware of it. I'm aware of it, and it's something that I may see, but it's not the same. Where ultimately, Pokemon was something that was near and dear, but I guess sadly I grew up. But then again, I didn't, because I love Pokemon Go.
Yeah, you're back. Come back, Marquis.
Well, I never left. It's like one of those things where my dream is to see a virtual reality Pokemon using the PlayStation 4 Oculus, where you would just be.
Stop.
I know, but it's so obvious, with Pokemon Go, or just put fucking Pokemon Go on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox, and then make it compatible with VR.
It's Nintendo property. That's not going to happen. But
come on,
Nintendo will do VR sooner or later.
But I have a fucking $1,000 PlayStation VR rig, so
it's not going to happen.
Give it to me.
Hey, I don't know. Sony's willing to crack deals, so
right. Well, they're talking about cross-platform with Xbox and Sony. I've seen that, and the thing is,
Nintendo's not. It's just not going to happen. Trust me. Nintendo's not going to let it happen. Trust me.
Stop being such a fucking...
I'm just being realistic.
You're being a Misty.
Captain, I'm just simply trying to offer the most realistic viewpoint.
I live in the same
Wait,
world.
I'm the fucking captain of this show. God damn it. 50 episodes under the belt.
I don't know what's happening
here. So
let's
bring it back to the trailer. Misty probably isn't older. She's not necessarily older. She just has her hair down. But that's the way she wears it in gold and silver when she is older, which is why people probably think she's older. Also, if you do some digging, the lady with the blue... Okay, so there's a song playing during the trailer. And that song is the closing theme for Pokemon in Japan. And the song involves an older woman and a child singing back and forth about what you were just talking about, growing up and losing the wonder of childhood. And the woman who is the singer in that song provided the voice in Japan for the blue-haired woman that ran the harbor, the
soothsayer,
Transylvanian woman, as you called her.
Yes, they want to understand that there is a prophecy.
I think the reason that happens is because they're like, we're going to hire 3 voice actors. How many voices can you guys do? Oh, I can do Transylvanian and redneck. All right, we'll make that character talk like a redneck and that character talk like a Transylvanian, regardless of what their character design is.
Right. It was just, it was like, you got to, that makes exactly perfect sense. But it was just jarring because it's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Y'all do accents now?
The lady who sang the song provided the voice for her in the movie. Right. So the reason she's probably in the trailer alongside a young child is because the Japanese audience would recognize the voice and be like, oh, it's the people that sing this song that's playing. They're hanging out with Misty telling us that the Pokemon movie is going to come. So that's all it was a promotional material. I know this sucks because it demystifies a really fun mystery, but hey... That, unfortunately, there's 2 sides to the coin. We celebrate the wonderment of Pokemon, and we also demystify. But hey, that truck's still out there. No one knows where the truck came from.
What truck?
That's another episode. All right, so thank you, as usual, for all of your support for 50 fucking episodes. You guys have been the best listeners ever. Marquis, thank you so much. I hope you come back and do more episodes. I'm sure people would love to hear you back.
You already know, and for those who don't love me, I'm an acquired taste, and I promise you...
He is an acquired taste.
Well, you didn't have to repeat it.
Damn.
But I am very passionate about people and life and goodness. And Nathan, everything that you're a part of is great, and it's always an honor. It's a pleasure. And
Thank you so much, man.
Oh, man, I will always come when you call, and you have to know that. Like, it's serious. I believe in you, and I see you and Craig and everyone involved with this project going all the way to the top. And I'm doing this for selfish reasons. I just want to be able to guest star on when you make it to the top. Like, come on, man, because I'm going to have this on record, timestamp. Like, I was there, man. I came at night, and I recorded with you. You give me when you make the next Rick and Morty, I just want to play an alien. And that's really what this is me investing in something that I believe in. And I believe in all the podcasts you're a part of. And it's an honor to talk about something that I didn't realize until today meant so much to me as I transitioned from childhood to adulthood. And anybody that was lucky enough to be there at the time probably had a similar experience. And, it's great to remember that and to celebrate it. So here's to you, Pokemon, the Pokemon fans of Silph Radio, and all the different podcasts you do. And, life is about... Yeah, doing that.
Thank you so much.
Chasing your dreams. So
it means the world to me. This is I'm living my dream. So Ash, back the fuck off. I found my dreams and I'm living it.
You Ash catching them, man. I'm telling you. Listen, as soon as we get off, we spent the last couple hours talking about Pokemon. And as soon as I get off, and go and try to run and catch my bus, I'm gonna put on Pokemon Go and play Pokemon and still live in that world.
Go out there.
Yeah.
Catch some fucking Pokemon.
I will. So everybody out there, go watch the movie. Keep listening to the podcast. Check me out, Marquis Woolford, 20-time published author. My books are on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, the Kindle app. You can look me up on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and basically just support. I'm somebody that's passionate about life and pushing people to be their best. And I write about everything from science fiction to spiritual fiction, poetry, comedy. I talk about my life and all the amazing things that I've been a part of, being born in Hollywood, growing up in Buffalo, New York. And I don't know if I mentioned
subversive, modern day sci-fi and fantasy. Like it's
well, thank you,
really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And did I mention that I introduced the internet to President Bill Clinton?
Did you? Not yet on this episode,
okay.
But you have. Yes.
All right. Well, Google that. It's on YouTube. I feel like that should always be mentioned when I ever say anything.
It's great. And I mean, just Google Marquis Woolford. You'll find all this stuff. But if you can't find it, you know where to find us. You're you've already liked our page, right? It's 50 episodes. You better have liked us on Facebook or followed us on Twitter, at Fairpoint Pod on Twitter.
And I'm sharing this on my page, so make sure you go back and like it, because my man Nathan and all the people involved, they cover so many amazing topics and so many entertaining things that they put together over the years. And I don't know this, but Nathan, well, if you listen to this podcast, you may, he's a phenomenal rapper. And one day I want to do some stuff with him on that side of things, because
Thank you.
That's one of his many talents that he and I share humbly. So for me, we've had some amazing ciphers, and we didn't record any of it. So you guys,
Well, there's one episode of Fair Enough. If you listen to the end, because you always listen to the end of a Secret Room podcast, you never know what you're missing if you cut out when you think it's the ending. Listen until the file stops playing, like how they used to hide tracks on CDs. Millennials don't know about that. You'd be like, why does this track, when I rip it to my computer, 13 minutes long?
Should have shot me. Tupac.
Go check out Marquis's shit. Check out our shit.
But some of our greatest ciphers have definitely not been recorded. Me, you, and all the other guys in the living room. And, over the years, it's just been an honor to continue to be a part of something that I've seen develop for so long. I moved to Syracuse 10 years ago. And probably for the better part of those 10 years, I've been working with you, in different capacities, And we've had our issues, like any good relationship. So that's how you know it's real. Like, you're my brother, man, and I love you, Nathan. And I just want you to keep doing what you're doing.
Back at you, man.
You guys don't see the bro handshake, but it's real. So I'm going to get out.
It's never
here.
a sound effect.
I'm gonna run home and and just keep doing what I do, and Nate, you keep doing what you do, and I'll be back for the next 50. It'd be an honor. So
it has been an honor.
Episode 100. Regardless, I'm definitely gonna be back for many, many more.
Awesome. We'll see you soon, man. And hey, everybody, enjoy your week. Be nice to each other, and just be nice to each other. That's all I gotta say. Have a good one, guys.
These tears, what are they for?
From the Secret Room, I'm Nathan K.
And I'm Marquis Woolford.
Have a great week, guys.